In the beginning, that in nothing existed. The universe was a vast, chaotic ocean, and from this primordial chaos emerged Benben, a massive pyramidal mound. Alongside Benben, a lotus flower also appeared, and as it bloomed, it brought forth the god Ra, who illuminated the world. Ra alone generated the first generation of gods. Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, were born. The universe was filled with an immense mass of primordial waters. Shu and Tefnut dove into the waters to explore their vastness. Ra became distressed when he noticed that his children had not returned, fearing he would never see them again, and sent his best messenger to find them. Shu and Tefnut returned safely, and Ra's joy was so great that the tears that flowed from his eyes gave rise to human beings. After their return, his children in turn generated Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky, thus creating the sky and the earth. The great god Ra ruled the universe sovereignly, and he was bestowed the title of the first pharaoh. The god gifted Egypt with several sacred animals, such as the bull, the lion, and the crocodile. But his greatest gift was the creation of the Nile River, along whose banks humanity would rise to build a civilization in glory to the gods. However, Ra had a foreboding that his grandchildren would create a new generation of gods that would end his reign. And so, the great god forbade the goddess of the sky and the god of the earth from having children. But Nut and Geb disobeyed Ra and gave birth to very powerful children. Among the new gods are Isis, Nephthys, Seth, and Osiris. Together, they dethrone Ra, and now Osiris reigns over the world. But the throne of the new supreme god is not secure, for his brother Seth desires to seize power for himself, and thus begins the saga of the Egyptian gods. After deposing the god Ra, who was a deity that gave rise to the Egyptian world, Osiris became the new supreme god of the universe. The new ruler took the goddess Isis as his wife and initiated a reign of great prosperity. Osiris brought civilization to humanity, which until that moment had lived in a very primitive manner. The god taught them agriculture, herding, and how to make bread, as well as instituting laws that would bring order where chaos reigned. Egyptian civilization began to flourish under the reign of the benevolent god Osiris. But Seth envied Osiris and would do anything to steal his brother's place. Seth's realm lay in the desert area surrounding Egypt, which is why he was very envious of his brother, who had a fertile and prosperous kingdom. Osiris became involved with the goddess Nephthys, Seth's wife, and from this union, Anubis, the god of the dead, was born. Enraged by his brother's betrayal, Seth plotted his revenge. The god of the arid lands and the personification of evil invited Osiris to a grand feast in his honor. During the feast, Seth presented the guests with a beautiful coffin and said he would gift it to whoever fit perfectly inside it. Osiris decided to try it out, and as soon as he settled in, Seth closed the coffin, trapping the god inside. The evil god threw the coffin into the Nile, drowning the supreme god. Goddess Isis wept greatly for the loss of her beloved husband, and her tears flowed into the Nile, giving rise to the traditional floods of the river. Goddess Isis and her sister Nephthys set out in search of the body taken by the Nile. After finding Osiris's body, Isis tried to hide it, but the powerful god Seth found it and chopped it into 42 pieces, scattering them throughout Egypt. With the help of Anubis, Isis managed to recover the pieces, and under the guidance of the god of the dead, she mummified Osiris. Through her divine powers, the goddess was able to resurrect her beloved, but now Osiris would reign in the afterlife, where he judged the spirits of those who entered the realm of the dead. After returning to life, Osiris had a son with Isis, named Horus, who vowed to overthrow Seth. Seth, the god of destruction, had murdered Osiris, the god who ruled supreme over Egypt. Seth took his brother's throne for himself and began his reign of terror. However, Osiris had sired an heir with the goddess Isis, named Horus. He was a falcon god, and it was prophesied that the young god would reign over the skies and bring back light to Egypt, thus ending the darkness brought by Seth. As an adult, Horus decided to claim his throne, usurped by his uncle. The dispute was taken to be judged by the gods, while the divine court, presided over by Ra, decided who was worthy to sit on the throne. A series of contests between Seth and Horus began. Seth counted on Ra's favor, as the usurper protected the sun god from the serpent Apophis while he crossed the skies. Seth challenged Horus. Both would transform into hippos and should remain submerged for 3 months. Horus hoped that his mother, goddess Isis, would take advantage of Seth's vulnerability to kill him. But the goddess felt sympathy for Seth and could not bring herself to kill him. This betrayal enraged Horus, who attacked his mother, cutting off her head. The god Thoth, the deity of knowledge, saved the goddess by placing the head of a cow in place of the old one. The dispute between Seth and Horus continued for many years. While they fought in the desert, Seth managed to rip out Horus's eye. With the help of Hathor, the goddess of love, Horus had his eye restored. The struggle between Seth and Horus had been going on for many years. Then, the divine court demanded that the two gods reconcile. The evil god, feigning goodwill, invited Horus to a festivity at his palace. During the night, Seth attempted to assault his nephew, an act that would render Horus unworthy of the throne. However, Horus was able to defend himself and prevented the god from planting his poisonous seed. Horus decided to take revenge, and with the help of goddess Isis, he placed his divine seed on lettuce leaves, which were offered to Seth by Isis. The god of the barren deserts ate the contaminated lettuce. Poisoned, Seth began to deteriorate in front of everyone, and from his forehead, a bright disk started to emerge. The god Thoth took the luminous disk and fixed it on his own head. Seth had been humiliated, and it was then, finally, after 80 years, that the court decided to grant Horus the throne that was rightfully his. Isis could not have been prouder to see her son with Osiris take the throne of his father. Seth was destined to travel through the skies alongside Ra, the sun god, and his screams of fury could be heard through the rumble of thunder. And thus began Horus's reign over the world. And among his descendants were all the pharaohs who would one day rule over Egypt. Anubis, the god with the head of a jackal, is a deity from Egyptian mythology associated with the afterlife. He is one of the oldest Egyptian deities, and therefore his role has changed over the centuries. Anubis was once considered the main deity linked to death and the god of the underworld, but this role was transferred to the god Osiris. The jackal god was also regarded as the god of embalming and mummification. In funerary rituals, it was common for a priest to wear a jackal mask during the mummification process. The god was also seen as the protector of tombs and cemeteries, thus safeguarding the bodies of those who had departed to the underworld. Anubis is the son of the goddess Nephthys, Seth's wife, but he was not born from their union, as Nephthys had disguised herself as the goddess Isis, and thus she lay with Osiris. Upon learning of such infidelity, Seth plotted against Osiris, killing him and scattering his body parts throughout Egypt. After Isis collected all the pieces, Anubis assisted the goddess during the funeral ritual of Osiris, and thus Anubis transformed the god's body into the first mummy. Anubis then became a deity who guided the spirits of the dead to the underworld, where the deceased would be judged by a court presided over by Anubis. The god placed the heart of the deceased on the scale of Osiris, and on the other side, the feather of truth was placed. If the heart was heavier than the feather, indicating that it was filled with evil, it was delivered to Amit, a demonic creature known as the devourer of hearts. If the feather was heavier than the heart, it meant the person was good, and Anubis would guide them to Osiris, allowing the deceased to enter the afterlife. During the period of Greek domination over Egypt, the god Anubis was associated with Hermes, who in Greek mythology is a deity that led the souls of the dead to the underworld. This association gave rise to a deity called Hermanubis, which became very popular during the Roman domination period. Anubis is certainly one of the most popular deities in Egyptian mythology, the god responsible for guiding souls to the afterlife. Bastet is the cat goddess of Egyptian mythology. She is depicted as having the body of a woman, but with the head of a cat. Cats were animals that the Egyptians honored greatly. These animals were sacred to the Egyptian people. Felids played an important role in Egyptian society, as they kept their food safe from rodent infestations and also scared away dangerous venomous snakes. Bastet is a goddess associated with the sun, and therefore, during the day, the goddess accompanied Ra in his journey across the sky in his solar boat. During the night, the goddess took on the full form of a cat, and as a vigilant protector, she guarded the world from the terrible serpent Apophis. The goddess was worshipped throughout Egypt. Harming any cat was considered a terrible sacrilege, and the perpetrator of such violence could be punished with death. Cats were seen as family members, and according to some reports, when a house was on fire, cats would enter the burning building to help the inhabitants escape the flames. Sometimes these cats appeared to have perished in the fire, but thanks to the goddess Bastet, they would return to life, reinforcing the popular saying that cats have 7 lives. As sacred animals, cats were mummified, and there are cemeteries in Egypt dedicated to these animal mummies. According to some versions, Bastet is linked to Sekhmet, the lioness goddess. Sekhmet was a violent goddess with a thirst for blood, but she was pacified, becoming a gentle cat goddess and a drinker of milk. In other versions, Bastet and Sekhmet were merely sisters, daughters of Ra. Thoth is the god of wisdom in Egyptian mythology. The god is depicted as an anthropomorphic figure with the head of an ibis, a bird from the pelican family. However, he was sometimes also represented as a baboon, another animal sacred to the god. Thoth was credited with the invention of writing. He taught the Egyptians to create various types of records using hieroglyphs. The god was also responsible for drafting laws and teaching mortals the science of accounting. Thoth is the protector god of scribes, a highly esteemed class in ancient Egypt due to their mastery of the art of writing. The god Thoth was widely worshipped in Egypt, and in addition to being the god of wisdom, he was also the god of astronomy, magic, and medicine, among other sciences for which he was a patron. Thoth was seen as a kind, just, and conciliatory figure, but he was also relentless against the enemies of truth. The god oversaw Anubis's scales, which were used to judge the spirits of deceased individuals. Thoth's partner was Mat, the goddess of justice and truth. From this relationship was born Seshat, a goddess also associated with wisdom. In other versions, Seshat is considered the wife of Thoth. Thoth is often depicted with a disk above his head. This disk represents the moon, making him a lunar deity. The ancient Egyptians used the cycles of the moon to measure time, and thus the god was also associated with time. He was responsible for creating the Egyptian calendars, which were essential for predicting the flood cycles of the Nile River. During the Greek domination of Egypt, Thoth, being a highly revered god, was combined with the Greek god Hermes. The main city that worshipped the god of wisdom was Daroi, also known as Hermopolis, the city of Hermes. This city housed the largest library of ancient Egypt. The millennia-old Egyptian god of wisdom continues to illuminate the path of those who seek knowledge and search for truth. And this was a brief video about Egyptian mythology. If you liked it, please leave a like, as it helps me a lot in my work.